on the Newsmaker Hotline, our good friend Larry Kudlow from CNBC, also the host of the Larry Kudlow Show on WMAL, heard Saturdays at 7 p.m. Larry, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
There's a great op-ed that I read the other day in the Wall Street Journal about the politics of uncertainty and how it is a drag on business. I mean, I think we can all agree the one thing business doesn't like is the unknown. Well, Bill McNabb, the CEO of Vanguard, did a really interesting job of sort of laying this all out and talking about how our economic climate is more uncertain today than it's been perhaps in any time in memorable history. And he calculates through the economists there at Vanguard that it has been a $261 billion drag on the economy. Just the fact that so many things are uncertain at the moment.
Well, it's a good piece. I'm not sure I can qualify all those numbers, but I'm sure they worked them up as best they can. But I think the big point in terms of economic growth is that you have all these massive deficits and overspending. So the question is, over time, are we not going to have to pay taxes to cover those deficits and debts? Sort of taxes for future generations, or maybe just taxes in the next 10 years, and that's holding back business, and it may be holding back individuals, entrepreneurs, innovators, because they're not going to be rewarded properly. So the tax problem, as a result of the unbalances in the fiscal area, is a big problem. The second point, as I recall, is the regulatory issue. I think he mentioned Obamacare, and that is a job inhibitor, is it not? I mean, we're all worried, including myself, about tax burdens coming from Obamacare, regulatory burdens, red tape burdens, all these things affecting businesses. The 50th person is eligible. If you're in a small business, the 50th person is eligible for the tax and regulatory mandates. If you work 30 hours a week, you're eligible. So, in some sense, that means you want to keep your payroll down to 49. You don't want to create the 50th job. And in a second sense, you don't want people to work 30 hours a week. You want to hold them back to 28 hours a week so you won't have to pay the fines or other financial penalties. And the guy's dead right. The guy's completely right. And no one has much of a sense of what the roadmap is, right? We just don't know what's out there, and so far I don't think Obama's been very enlightening. Despite his charm offensive, I don't see anything changing. Are we going to reform entitlements? Who knows? Are we going to have tax reform? I don't know if you saw the stories yesterday. European countries are cutting corporate taxes. Portugal is cutting corporate taxes. Britain is cutting corporate taxes. The Netherlands already has a low corporate tax rate, and money is flooding into the Netherlands. Well, why does the United States cut corporate tax rates? Why don't we have foreign money flooding in here that could be put to work? Why don't we stop double taxing profits that are housed overseas? That could be tremendous investment potential, which would create jobs. So all these things are part of the uncertainty premium.
Well, and Larry Kudlow, all of those things would go against Barack Obama's base and what they mandated him to do in the election. And so instead, what he's doing, it seems the only thing that he can do is operate through the Fed. The Fed Open Market Committee is meeting today, and it looks like they're going to keep the rates at zero, basically, or right around zero, and they're going to continue buying, billions, what is it, $85 billion in securities every month?
That is correct.
Are we in danger of becoming Japan from about 15 years ago at this point, where they basically did the same policies, I think, and they had no growth at all?
Well, Japan, by the way, Japan is doing it right now. Japan is buying bonds and injecting new cash into the economy. Actually, they just had a pretty good consumer spending number that came out.
Right, but didn't they go for about a decade or two so worried about inflation that they just artificially kept the rates low and they ended up having no economic growth?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't put enough money into the economy. You're quite right. I mean, they were suffering from deflation. They were suffering from recession. Are we suffering from that? Well, no. I mean, we're growing at 2%. That ain't great, but I guess it's the best in the neighborhood. But there's no question the Fed is going to keep pouring it on, especially after yesterday. You had very low inflation reading. The consumer price deflator, which is their main measure, actually fell in March and is only 1% now the last 12 months. Their target is 2%. So you can bet the Fed is going to keep pouring money in. I think they should right now. I'm going to tell you
you're still on Team Bernanke.
Well, it's funny. As I admitted, mea culpa, the inflation that many of us worried about a couple of years ago has simply not panned out. And the reason for that is all the Fed's money that they're pumping in has not been put to work. It's not circulating through the economy. So they're going to have to stay with this for a while, and we're all going to have to live with this for a while. What the long-term consequences are, we don't know. But in the short run, they are targeting nominal GDP, and they are trying to get real GDP up. Look, to me, you lower tax rates, particularly for businesses, you won't have to keep pumping up the money supply. You see what I'm saying? I'm arguing that taxes and regulatory burdens are the main obstacles to the economy, okay? I'm not so critical of Bernanke right now. Let him finish his program of bond buying. But the fact of the matter is, what that Vanguard article suggested, and what I've always believed and what supply-siders believe, is that taxes and regulations and also government spending inhibit the economy. It's monetary policy that deals with deflation or inflation. But until you solve your fiscal problems, you're going to have a lot of trouble. And I think that's blocking recovery. I think it's still going to block recovery. We're in a 2% zone right now. We had 2.5% in the first quarter. The big issue on Wall Street is there going to be a spring swoon. We're going to go back to 2 or 1.5%. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Because I think the government spending cutbacks are being offset. That's okay, but that's what Wall Street's worried about. Yesterday's stock market was pretty strong, so that was a positive. Earnings are good. Yeah. Earnings help the economy. Believe me, earnings are very important to the economy.
All right, Larry Kudlow, always a pleasure to have you on.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Larry.